listening to Over the Oxer podcast with Tracy Cole for all things to do with the mind for equestrians.
So welcome back to the podcast. I hope you're having a great August and you're managing to spend some time with your horse, if not riding. Now, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off after this podcast, so I will see you again in September. In the meantime, there's loads and loads of podcast episodes for you to rifle through and use as a mindset library. There's lots and lots of them. I think there's about 160 or almost that number. So why not have a little look through, recap some of the techniques that I've covered, or if you simply can't find anything for your particular mindset niggle or mindset woe, why not send me an email or contact me on social media so that I can do an episode all about that. So I'll put my social media and my email down in the description box. I know that some podcast platforms don't have a description box. So my email is info@tracycolenlp.com. Okay, let's get on with today's episode. So first of all, I want to just briefly talk about this word trigger, and I want to talk about it in the everyday sense, not necessarily the NLP or the psychological sense. And then I want to talk about something that's kind of like the opposite. So in the everyday world, we talk about triggers. And we usually mean it in a negative sense. So it's something that sets us off. It makes our heart rate go. It's usually bringing back a memory or a negative emotion. In terms of riding, it's usually bringing back some incident that wasn't terribly pleasant. But triggers, when we do get triggered in that way, tend to be quite big, quite bold, they demand our attention, and we can often get drawn into those memories and almost relive them, which is the opposite of what we want to do. Now, triggers are, in that vein, in that sense, are negative. They're no good for us. The only good that could ever come out of them is learning from them. And once you start to find out what you needed to learn from that event, then they start to fade. But what I really want to concentrate on is the opposite of a trigger. A small, maybe subtle moment of joy or calm or connection. That little glimmer. I love that word. Glimmer. It just evokes for me sort of a soft shimmering, so a kind of tiny sparkle that says, this is good. So not the huge monumental wins, not the big victories that we have, those times when we leap forwards. Not those things. Glimmers are much, much softer. They're really quiet moments, and if we don't watch out for them, they often get lost in the noise of the everyday. And to me, glimmers are much more important than the big, audacious goal being met, because glimmers can happen each and every day. So why should we care about glimmers? Well, they're the building blocks or the stepping stones for me to confidence. As riders, we often fixate on what goes wrong. And these can be tiny, tiny things, a missed stride or a drop shoulder or a little spook. But we magnify those things. We put them underneath magnifying glasses. But glimmers are, if you like, an opportunity to put something under the microscope that's actually positive and good and counterbalance that negativity. So as we know, our brains have a natural negativity bias. We're built that way. because cavemen needed to know when they were in danger, and it was better to get out of a danger that wasn't happening. They mistook, I don't know, leaves moving for some wild predator coming for them, and in actual fact it was just a breeze. But it was better to get out of that situation than to ignore it, and it could have been a predator. But the glimmers help to rebalance that. So how on earth do we find a glimmer if I say they're happening all the time and to everyone? It's about being present in the moment. It's about very small things that are pleasing to you. So it may be like stroking down your horse's back and just feeling that suppleness, or it may be tuning into, very, very tiny things. And I'm going to give you some more examples in a few moments. So we need to use our senses. We often depend on our visual sense and kind of kick out some of the other senses. And that's a bit of a shame. We have turned more and more visual as we depend more and more on devices and phones and so on. But we can really hone in on other senses. So it may be that you listen to your horse chewing. So horses may be softly, rhythmically, or even noisily chewing their hay or eating their feed, and just that they're quite content in that. That could be a glimmer. It might be that you're walking with your horse or trotting, and maybe you're leading your horse or maybe you're riding, but on grass maybe, there's that thud, 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 the horse's footfall. And depending on your horse, it might be a quickened step, might be a slower step, it might be, symbolic of power and rhythm. And it might be floaty, or maybe just one stride, you got that lovely elevation and floatiness. But that doesn't matter, that's the glimmer. Now, I said as well, about seeing isn't the only sense, but when you think about seeing, have you ever looked at your horse's coat when the light hits it in a certain way and it kind of shimmers? So it could be natural light flooding into the stable, or maybe it's just the angle of another light and it's just catching the coat, and you can just see that shininess. Maybe you can see your horse's ears move. I love watching horses' ears move. They're so expressive. And it may be that they're attuned to something around them, something happening around them. Or maybe their ears are pricked up because of you. Think about what you feel. How warm is your horse? My horses are always beautifully warm, whatever the weather. When I touch their skin, it's so warm, and just that warmth is so lovely. Or it could be that you feel, their muzzle, that velvet. It could be that you gently stroke their face, they allow you to do that. Or it could be, the feeling of a beautiful canter transition that just feels, smooth as butter. It could be anything at all that you feel. It might be something that you smell. Smells are so evocative. I absolutely love the smell of haylage. That is definitely a glimmer for me. Or freshly cut grass. I love the smell of that. So maybe there's a smell for you. Maybe it's the smell of your horse. And so the key with these glimmers is to actively look for them, because they are there. But if we don't look for them, the moment's gone and it's passed us by. We're so so busy planning the next step of our life, or we are forensically dissecting what's happened, that we miss these sometimes really short glimpses. And so it may be useful before you get on to just stand for 30 seconds to find one. Just one little glimmer, anything at all. Could be the way your horse looks at you, could be the smell of the surroundings, could be the feel of the air, anything at all. Now for something a little bit more practical. How do we use these glimmers to become the rider that we would like to be? Well, the best thing to do is to collect them. Think of these glimmers as little gems, and when you find it, you can mentally put it into your pocket. Acknowledge it. That was a good halt. That was really square. I really like that bend, that turn into the corner. My horse felt really supple and relaxed on the circle. Whatever it is, my horse looked at me. Even if it was because you were carrying a feed bucket, it doesn't really matter. My horse looked at me in a longing way. It wasn't for me, but it was for the feed. That's still a little glimmer. Don't let it pass you by. The next thing to do is to use them as a reset. So when you do hit a negative trigger, when you do feel frustrated, when you do feel that things aren't going right, things are falling apart, call on a glimmer. It could be a past glimmer. You could possibly, if you're strong enough in your mind, find one in the moment. So once you find one, it stops you derailing everything. It stops you thinking about making everything into such a big deal. Pull out that glimmer. Maybe it is a memory of something that went really, really well. It doesn't help you to fix the big things, but it can stop a downward spiral. It can break a negative self-talk. It can help you to find your way back to thinking more resourcefully. So it's not about pretending that these bad things don't happen or that everything's perfect. It's not about putting a smile on when you feel terrible. It's not about, being happy and falsely happy when things aren't going well. It's about being more realistic. Because sometimes when we draw back from being in that bad situation, it just helps us for a few moments to improve our mental state, almost, figuratively get back into the saddle and become more resilient and more effective as a rider. So my challenge for you, before I see you again in September, is to be that glimmer hunter. Go out and find them. Don't worry about the big wins. Focus on those small, quiet, sometimes soft and gentle moments that bring you calm and joy. Because when you do that, you really will have the foundation to be the type of rider that you absolutely deserve to be and that you want to be. Take care, and I'll see you again really soon.